This is going to be a very confusing lineup, but I'm going to try my best to break it all down for you. What I have here is the Lenovo Legion Go S. I reviewed a Windows version of this back about like 2 months ago. It was pretty good, but the processor that was in it wasn't the best given the price point they were charging at the time. There are currently 4 different SKUs of this handheld right now. There's an expensive and a cheap Windows version, and there's an expensive and a cheap SteamOS version. Now, the expensive versions both have Z1 Extreme chips in them. That's a pretty good chip. The cheaper ones have a Z2 Go chip in it. That one isn't quite as powerful, even though it's got a 2 in the name. You'd think it'd be more. The big news here are the SteamOS versions. This is the first time a product is shipping with official SteamOS on it. That's kind of a big deal. This isn't a fork of SteamOS. This is not an offshoot. This is not a mod. This is full-blown official SteamOS made and supported by Valve. It's actually exactly the same SteamOS that's in the Steam Deck. It uses the same recovery image, which is kind of revolutionary. SteamOS just dropped a couple of days ago. And with that launch, we were supposed to see 3 of these Lenovo Legion Go S's launch as well. Unfortunately, one of them, maybe the most anticipated one, the Z1 Extreme SteamOS version, was delayed until mid-June. It was delayed 1 day after it was supposed to have shipped. That is also the one that I purchased and wanted to make a review on. So the Lenovo Legion Go S's that you'll be seeing in this video are just the Windows versions. That's why they're white and not gray. But they do have the official SteamOS build just slapped onto them. So this is exactly what you'll be seeing on the SteamOS version. And you know what? I'm really liking SteamOS on here. If you do end up buying a SteamOS version of the Lenovo Legion Go S, you'll be essentially just getting a souped up Steam Deck right out of the box, which is really cool to see. I already reviewed this handheld with Windows on it a few months back, and I like the hardware a lot. I just didn't like the price they were charging for it, and I don't like Windows that much. I slapped an older version of SteamOS on Bazite. It's called Bazite. But now you can get it with official SteamOS on it already, and you can get it for way cheaper. So this is actually a pretty decent contender in the handheld space. It's even, dare I say, a pretty decent contender against the Steam Deck. Now, I do think SteamOS needs a little more time to bake in the oven. I think that's why the Lenovo I purchased has been delayed. But if you're considering buying a Steam Deck anytime soon, you might want to check this thing out. This video is sponsored by Encore, and I limited the RAM on here. So now this is just essentially the cheaper SteamOS version. Oh, and I put SteamOS on here, which is like really easy to do. It wasn't a big deal at all. Anyway, I'm Bob. Hey! Hey! Oh, God. Hey, man! You're that guy who got me that Sega that one time. Kanish guy, right? Hey, man. How's it going? Ah, good. Hey, man, you gotta show me how to use that app so I can regain all my childhood now. I'm in the middle of something right now. I'm coming in there. Please don't come in here. I'm coming in there. Please don't come in here. I'm coming in there. Encore is the new place to learn about and shop for video games and other collectibles. Each listing has a TikTok-style video explaining the product and showing you its condition. It's a much better way to see what you're actually buying. It's the new place to find hidden gems in video game collecting. I like it way better than pixel-peeping pictures from a listing on a site like eBay. Encore now gives you rewards for using the app, so you can now get up to $200 to use on whatever listing you want. $200? That's a whole day's worth of commission. Yes, but download the app first on the App Store. You ordered appetizers already. I'm coming in there. Please don't. Encore takes trust and safety seriously. All sellers are ID verified. The Encore guarantee protects you when your items come not as described. There are also a ton of free giveaways on the app, and you don't pay anything if you win, not even shipping. And I'm giving away another Game Boy Advance that I modded. This time it's an IPS modded Game Boy Advance with this clear acrylic case. Look at how pretty she is.
Follow me on here, that's my account. Search Wulff Den and you'll find me for my giveaway.
And make sure you're subscribed. It ups your chances, I promise. Join the giveaway and get up to $200 to use on Encore. All you have to do is click my link in the description below and download Encore from the iOS or Android app stores right now. I'm gonna come in there. Please don't come in here. I'm coming in there! No! Don't come in here! I'm in the middle of something. And what might that be? Pondering your thoughts all by yourself? No, I'm... Oh. You can come in here. Yeah, I'm coming in there! Come in there! I'm coming in there! I just gotta figure out where to park my cart. I'm bringing it in there! Bring it in here! So I have here the cheaper Lenovo Legion Go S Windows version. It's not actually cheap, it's just cheaper than the other one. I previously put Bazite on here, which is a version of SteamOS that we would put on our Allies or our Lenovos to essentially turn it into a Steam Deck. It was SteamOS before SteamOS. But now there is an official SteamOS that officially supports this, so we have to try that out. My friend Jerry, who also has a YouTube channel, just purchased the Z1 Extreme version of this. So I basically forced him to come over and let me borrow it for about 2 hours. And that was enough to do all of the tests that I needed. The two Z1 Extreme versions of this handheld are essentially the same. One of them comes with SteamOS, one of them comes with Windows. And there's a $70 difference, which I guess is what pays for the Windows license. The two Z2 Go versions are a little bit different. The one that I have here is the Windows version, and this one comes with 32 gigabytes of RAM. The SteamOS version only comes with 16. There's also a $130 price difference between the two. Except for right now. While I was writing this video, I was looking it up, and they're the same price right now. This one's on sale. Get this one. It comes with more RAM. Put SteamOS on it yourself. I started making this video with the assumption that the SteamOS version was the much better deal. Now, they just love to confuse things. So this is the Z2 Go Windows version that I have here with 32 gigabytes of RAM. I spent a decent amount of time turning it into a cheaper Z2 Go SteamOS version for this video. That means I put SteamOS on here, and I even limited the RAM to act like it has 16 gigabytes of RAM instead of 32. So, to confuse you even more, for the purposes of this video, we're focusing on the two SteamOS versions, even though this is white. So just pretend like this is the cheaper $600 gray SteamOS version with 16 gigabytes of RAM and SteamOS, please. Have I made it clear enough? In my previous video, I dual booted Windows and Bazite on here. Again, Bazite is essentially SteamOS. That was great. It's the best of both worlds. It's how I like to enjoy most of these handhelds. I can play Windows-only games on it, but I can also spend most of my time in Bazite, giving me the closest Steam Deck-like experience that I can get at the time. I feel like it's way better to have a Steam Deck-like OS and UI. I don't like dealing with Windows at all. Windows always has some dumb bullshit going on. There's always something making you touch the screen. SteamOS or Bazite helps you avoid almost all of that nonsense. But sometimes, Windows is cool for games like Fortnite or Call of Duty, or anything with an anti-cheat that Linux doesn't like. So having both is really nice. However, SteamOS currently doesn't have an easy way to dual boot with Windows. When you install SteamOS on here, it wipes the entire drive, all partitions, and there's no options. So if you have Windows on here, you'll lose all of it. You could probably still dual boot Windows by installing Windows after SteamOS, by creating a partition in Linux and installing Windows to that. But I already had a Windows partition, just let me use that one, you know? Most people are gonna have Windows already. Also, I don't know if SteamOS isn't just gonna wipe it during an update sometime. This is all brand new to me. Okay, we don't get a choice. Okay. Goodbye, Windows. Bye-bye. So, for the sake of time and my sanity, I decided to just wipe Windows. I don't really care about the Windows side of things for the purposes of this video. I already made a video on the Windows side of this. Except, now I wish I kept it, because people are making videos about how much better SteamOS is performing than Windows. And I think that those videos are greatly exaggerated. Valve has steps to install SteamOS on their support page. There are very few steps. It's very easy. Installing SteamOS is really as simple as making sure Secure Boot is off in the BIOS and just popping in a fresh SteamOS recovery image. Then you boot that bitch up and just run it. That's really it. As much as I love Bazite, this is significantly fewer steps than Bazite is. You just don't get to keep Windows on your drive after. Once SteamOS is on there, the setup is exactly like a Steam Deck. And remember, this is what you would see if you just purchased the SteamOS version. It would start you off right here. It's literally just a Steam Deck, except this one you can buy at the store, and the screen is big and 1200p. When you're done and you're looking at your games library, don't open a game yet. Go to the settings, go to system, and check for updates. And check multiple times, make sure you're connected to the internet, and install the update. And when that update's done, check for updates again. Keep doing it until there's no updates anymore. And then after that, restart the device just for good measure. This is essentially a day one build. So these updates are essential to get SteamOS to run normal. And then after all that, you can now start downloading and enjoying your games. So again, this is essentially the cheaper Z2 Go SteamOS version, especially now that I put SteamOS on here. The only difference is it's got 32 gigabytes of RAM. We're gonna limit that to 16. So this is exactly what you would get if you spent $600 on the SteamOS version. I hit up the Fox to ask him if he had any ideas on how to do this, because I know he's good with that. And he, within minutes, hit me back with a terminal command and some other bullshit. And it worked first try because he's a super genius. If you're curious what this command is, it's this. I don't recommend doing this at all because you're just nerfing your nice, expensive new toy. But, I mean, have fun. So now we have the $600 SteamOS version. But what about the $830 SteamOS version? The one with the Z1 Extreme in it. The one that I bought and is now delayed for 3 weeks, even though reviewers have had it for over a week now. That one. That one. I had to call my friend Jerry, that I've known for 20 years and also happens to be a YouTuber. He bought one of the Windows versions to make a video on because he doesn't have a Windows handheld currently. Somehow, I convinced him to let me pop the back off, slap an SSD in there with SteamOS on it, and run all the tests that I need to.
You want a guitar pick?
I got a Lego separator.
Is it the...
I don't want to do it if you're going to be crying and whimpering in the background the whole time.
Fine. Just don't break my guy.
Why are you so antsy?
Look at this. That doesn't look good. Okay.
Installing SteamOS, if you happen to get the Windows version, that's not a problem as long as you remember to turn off Secure Boot. I forgot about this for about an hour. Swapping the SSD out in case you want to do that, I'll say kind of a pain in the ass compared to every other mainstream PC handheld on the market right now. It's not that bad. You can still get in there. There's just a few more screws and pieces to pry off than I'm used to. Also, it doesn't take two 230 SSDs. You basically have to get the full-sized ones. And I wasn't expecting that. But that's fine. I'd rather use the full-sized ones because those are cheaper to get anyway. But we did it! We got SteamOS on there. I'm too used to saying that. So now we have an exact one-to-one with the SteamOS version that has the Z1 Extreme, that's $830, and the SteamOS version that has the Z2 Go in it and is $600. So now we have the SteamOS versions without having to wait for Lenovo and Best Buy to ship mine. What a complicated mess for no reason. So now that that's all set up and out of the way, I ran tests in 3 games: Marvel Rivals, Resident Evil 4, and Cyberpunk. I only just realized now that Cyberpunk has its own benchmarking tool. So this will be helpful for a lot of things. I should have been using this the whole time. I was most interested to see how SteamOS would perform overall, but I was also interested to see how it would perform against Bazite, the OS I used to use to get my SteamOS fix before SteamOS was official. Bazite gets around the same performance as Windows, maybe ever so slightly more. So I was expecting SteamOS to be basically the same. And you know what? It was. In Resident Evil 4, the Z2 Go got around 47 frames per second in Bazite, around 49 in SteamOS, with slightly higher peaks sometimes. And the Z1 Extreme with SteamOS got a whole 58 frames per second. That's kind of a big jump. On Windows and on previous testing with the Z2 Go, I was getting like 40 frames. That sounds wrong. I'd imagine the game must have updated more recently since I've done those tests a few months ago. A couple of frames difference in these tests is nothing to write home about. I would say like 5 frames per second is within the margin of error here. When I first started playing around with Bazite, though, it was weirdly getting like sometimes 1 frame more than Windows. And Bazite's explanation was these frame rates that we're getting are kind of low, and the benefits that Bazite or SteamOS gives you are marginal. But if you're using like a desktop, Windows to Linux or Bazite or SteamOS will be greater. So it's like maybe like a 5% difference. So if you have 200 frames, I can't do math, but you understand? You'll get more, the difference will grow. It'll be more noticeable. It's not as noticeable with these low frame rates. Marvel Rivals on Z2 Go using Bazite gave me 58 frames per second and around 42 when I opened a portal. That's the real test, opening a portal as Doctor Strange. On SteamOS, we got about the same, and on the Z1 Extreme version with SteamOS, we got 65 frames per second at its highest, and 49 when opening a portal. That is actually a pretty substantial jump. I was not expecting that. This is a game that I would definitely play with frame gen on if you're using a PC handheld. I know a lot of people don't like frame gen, but if you're playing on a handheld, you're probably not trying to go pro. Frame gen is a great way to smooth out your gameplay dramatically. Lastly, we have Cyberpunk. I fucked up the benchmark on Bazite. I left the frame cap on and didn't realize. But during gameplay, it got me around 37 frames per second. SteamOS gave it a little more wiggle room, but not much. And the Z1 Extreme version with SteamOS didn't really perform that much better. So my Z1 Extreme benchmark showed 49 frames per second. I don't like to watch other YouTubers' reviews before I review a product myself, but I saw on Twitter Dave2D's benchmarks, and he had 59 in Cyberpunk. And I think that was with the Z2 Go version, the worst one. So that's like a huge difference than what I was getting. I was just using the Steam Deck settings, which is pretty low settings, with the frame cap turned off at 1200p. That's it. And I was getting 49 on the more expensive version. I also coordinated my benchmarks with YouTuber Scattered Brain, who has the SteamOS version of the Z2 Go one, and he got pretty much the same benchmarks. There was about a 3-frame difference, which is within the margin of error, but also remember that I am emulating what it would be like to have 16 gigabytes of RAM in here. I took 32 and farted it down to 16. It's possible that giving the RAM that much wiggle room allowed it to not get as hot, and maybe I had more thermal room to play with than somebody who actually has 16 gigabytes of RAM. Also, at the risk of getting too technical, for whatever reason, when I limited the RAM on Bazite, it still acted like it had 8 gigabytes of VRAM to play around with, whereas SteamOS knew that it only had 6 gigabytes of VRAM to play with. I'm not sure if that had an effect on any of the tests, but that means SteamOS thought it had less VRAM to play with and still performed just as good as Bazite. So that's pretty impressive. When I was making this video, I did want to focus on the difference between Bazite and SteamOS, but now it seems like the conversation is more about SteamOS versus Windows. I didn't really think about that because I've already been there with Bazite. It's essentially the same thing. And the difference is marginal. I do believe in the Windows bloat. I think that Windows bloat might be a little overblown. I think that when Windows bloat rears its ugly head, it's usually like launching a game or doing stupid little things. But like while you're playing a game, it's kind of very similar to how it would act in SteamOS. It's a lot easier to only launch one thing at a time and only have one process running at a time in SteamOS. So that helps. The main draw to SteamOS is just how much simpler the UI is. It's a much better console experience. On Windows, you gotta tap the screen every once in a while. You gotta do all this bullshit. You gotta stare at the shitty Windows desktop. I have plenty of videos on comparing Windows versus Bazite, which is essentially SteamOS. So go watch me complain there. When I first did a video on this Windows version with the Z2 Go chip, I wasn't too thrilled. It was just priced so poorly. Now, SteamOS is here, and it's pretty fucking awesome. And if priced accordingly, the Z2 chip can be pretty great. So I'm actually extremely impressed with the cheaper $600 Z2 Go version. This gets pretty close to some of the expensive PC handhelds in terms of performance. It has one of the most beautiful screens in any handheld, and it's the most comfortable PC handheld on the market. And now it can come with SteamOS already on it, the most intuitive PC handheld UI out there. In the past, when people were deciding between a Steam Deck and any other PC handheld on the market, I would always nudge them towards the Steam Deck. It's easier to use and it's cheaper. But now, I'm seriously considering telling them to check out the SteamOS version of the Lenovo Legion Go S, the $600 one, the one that's within the Steam Deck's price range. It comes out of the box just like a Steam Deck, and it's a lot beefier than a Steam Deck. You're getting a 1200p screen instead of an 800p one. It's bigger and can push games a little farther. Hell, you can also just put full-blown Windows on here. You can't really do that on a Steam Deck. You can, but it sucks on there. Hell, if you want to tinker so bad, just catch the Windows version of the Legion Go S with double the RAM on sale for $600. Then put Bazite or SteamOS on that. There's kind of, all of a sudden, a ton of value in this handheld that we have here. If you do want to hear a lot more about the hardware and the screen and all the stuff, then I'd highly recommend just watching my full review of this thing. I put Bazite on here, so it's essentially what you would see if you got the SteamOS version. And it's dual booting Windows, so it's kind of the best of both worlds. The biggest downside that I have to bring up every time is the fan noise. It is absolutely horrendous. It's actually not doing anything right now, but when you're playing a game at full wattage, full TDP, it is the loudest handheld that I own. So that could be something that could deter you if you were interested in a Steam Deck, because the Steam Deck is way quieter. When using the Lenovo Legion Go S on battery, you should be able to expect some lower power. It pulls 33 watts of TDP when using battery, as opposed to the 40 watts you can get while it's plugged in. But for whatever reason, I'm getting very similar performance in the Cyberpunk benchmark. In Marvel Rivals, I was getting slightly lower. All of these tests that I did besides this one were using the Lenovo Legion Go S plugged in. So I just like getting the most power out of this thing. Also, I think in my original tests on Windows, I was getting close to like an hour 45, maybe 2 hours in a really high intensity game on this thing using Windows. In SteamOS, people are reporting better battery life. I would expect maybe slightly better battery life because SteamOS is better at regulating this TDP. It will use less if the game isn't going to use all of it. Like if you're just playing Dead Cells or Hollow Knight or something, it's not going to pull the full 33 or 40 watts that it needs. SteamOS is still brand new for handhelds other than the Steam Deck, so there is a little bit of wonkiness. I know that on the Z1 Extreme version, the lights don't light up for some reason. They do on the Z2 Go version. It's a lot wonkier on the Z1 Extreme version for some reason. I've heard reports that the little mouse nubbin also just stops working sometimes. And it did for me right now. I can't use it in the desktop mode. It's very strange. Right now, SteamOS also works on the Ally, the Ally X, and the original Lenovo Legion Go. However, it's even buggier on those than it is on the officially supported Lenovo Legion Go S. These names are so terrible. On the Ally and the Ally X, you have to install Decky Loader in order to even be able to get above 15 watts of TDP. The Ally X is capable of up to 30. So you're getting half the TDP unless you do some other bullshit. I also hear it works on a bunch of other devices, like the GPD devices. It works on a lot of stuff as long as you have an AMD CPU, GPU. Just don't go throwing it on your devices unless you like to tinker, because you will probably have to tinker. Unless you have a Lenovo Legion Go S, because again, it's officially supported for that. Bazite is still great, and it's gonna have less wonkiness right now. I'm not sure how long that will be true for. The unfortunate reality is that it will become less useful the more SteamOS continues to iterate. Bazite is still useful if you like to dual boot and you don't want to lose your Windows partition, or maybe if you want to install it on some other unsupported devices. It's basically exactly the same as SteamOS, so you're not really missing out on much. For the Ally and the Legion Go and stuff like that, I would still recommend Bazite, as it might work better on those devices than official SteamOS right now. But if what I have here, this Lenovo Legion Go S, is a glimpse into what the future might look like with SteamOS, I think the future looks super cool. It's going to be really cool to see this in other devices. It's a great time right now to be a handheld fan, and it's only going to get much better from here. What do you guys think about the Lenovo Legion Go S? I could not wait for the SteamOS version. The Switch 2 comes out in just a few days, man. You want me to review this when that's out? More importantly, what do you think about SteamOS? That is the big feature here. Leave it in the comments below, at me on Twitter, any and all this other social media garbage. Also, if you got one of these, show me what your freaking Cyberpunk benchmarks are. Even the Windows version, I'd like to see that. I unfortunately didn't get a chance to check it out in Windows because I had already wiped it, and I didn't think that was going to be the focus of the video. I didn't think we were going to have that much of a performance difference. And I still don't think we do, really. That's not why you should get SteamOS. You should get it for the simpler user experience. Thanks for watching. I stream on Twitch all the time. Make sure you join that giveaway from Encore if you want to get one of these Game Boy Advances that I modded. And you have to be subscribed if you want to do that, because I'll know. I'll definitely know. Most important thing you can do to support us is do that subscribe thing. And share this video with a friend who is interested in getting a Steam Deck. They might want to consider something else. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Have a good week.